Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Thank you for staying with us. State governors on the platform of the Nigerian Governors Forum say the 60,000 naira minimum wage that was proposed by the federal government's tripartite committee in negotiations with the organized labor before yesterday was not sustainable or realistic. The governors are convinced that any attempt at implementing the new payment structure would leave a few states desperately needing to borrow in order to be able to pay their workforce at the end of every month. According to them, this will not be in the collective interest of Nigeria. Critically, that was the position taken by the state's chief executives before government decided to up the ante late yesterday by proposing a new figure of 62,000 naira, which according to reports was rejected outright by the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress, who are now said to be holding out for 250,000 naira instead. We're now being joined by Chukwuma Ezediaro, a lawyer and public affairs analyst, to examine the key upshots from those negotiations and whether or not employers, both in the public and private sectors, can actually bear the burden of the new demands being made. Good morning, sir. It's a pleasure to have you on the morning show. Thank you for being here.
Good morning,
Steve. Good morning,
Adesha.
Good to join us.
So, I mean, we're all aware of what happened. I'm sure if you live in Lagos in Nigeria, we had about 2 or 3 days without lights. Flights were cancelled. We just saw everything come to a standstill. Now, in the late hours of yesterday, we're hearing that the federal government has come back and said, okay, Labour, we're going to give you 62,000 naira. We're going to add 2,000 naira at your daily 2K, and maybe that would make you stop or relax this particular strike. I want to know what your thoughts on it. Do you think that the federal government is taking this negotiation seriously? They're also coming off the back of they're saying that they can't afford it on the long run. What exactly is happening here? Let's analyze it this morning.
Okay, thank you, Shaitan. So we've been living with this conundrum about the minimum wage. Now, we must remember that in 2019, the Minimum Wage Act was passed, and it provided for a 5-year review period, and the 5-year review period turns up, incidentally, in 2024.
Yeah.
Late last year, I think the second half of last year, a 37-member committee was set up with the sole mandate of ensuring we get a new minimum wage. Sadly, we haven't gotten there yet. So we're here now, and we've seen the negotiations. Labour started at about 615,000 naira, which was truly outrageous, and now it came down to 497. Now we're hearing 250. Now the truth of the matter is this: I think it's clear to everyone that there is a reason why wages should be reviewed on a timely and periodic basis. That is clear. Wages are not supposed to be cast in stone forever and ever. Having said that, we're all witnesses to what has happened since last year. Now, the federal government last year introduced 2 major moves. They officially removed the fuel subsidy and then announced the float of the naira. Now, those twin shocks hit the Nigerian economy so badly that we saw the cost of living shoot through the roof. Now, the government did come out to inform Nigerians that, yes, it had inadvertently underestimated the implications of those moves. That's why we had the announcement of federal awards for federal civil servants, 35,000 naira monthly for about 3 months. We were told about the CNG-powered buses that will be brought in. We were told about the student loan scheme and other measures designed to alleviate the shocks. Now, here's my initial take on this conundrum. Labour needs to understand the realities in which we're living now. 615,000, 497,000, 250,000 is simply not going to fly. And I'm going to explain why.
250 will not fly?
It won't fly, sir.
What about 100,000?
100 could fly, but then again, we have to balance it. So yes, 100,000 is possible, but is it fair to the workers? Now, what percentage of the workforce actually work with the governments at the national level, sub-national level, or the local government level? They represent less than 15% in my estimation. You have a lot of these people in the private sector. Now, it's one thing to announce an award. The government can easily come out and say, okay, we're going to pay everyone 2 million a month. That's a declaration. Now, whatever you announce, whether we like it or not, there's going to be a corresponding increase in the prices of goods and services, including foodstuffs. We can't run away from it. So you have your average landlord waiting to hear the outcome of these negotiations. You raise it to 250,000. Be rest assured, rents are going up. The food sellers are waiting. The transport services providers are waiting. Everybody is waiting to hear them.
They've gone up anyway.
They will still go up again.
Multiple fold. They've gone up anyway. So what should an average worker do?
So I concede that. Now, the real reason why we're here is, yes, right now is a very challenging time to implement a national minimum, an increased minimum wage. However, there are several factors that brought us here. Governments at both the national and subnational levels and the local government levels have failed us over the last, say, 2 decades. Now, there are things that should have been in place, should be in place, that are not in place. We're talking infrastructure, we're talking power, we're talking security, we're talking productivity. Sad to say this on national TV, a good portion of the public workforce is underproductive, overpaid. Take a walk to any ministry, department, or agency at federal level or state level. You find a good number of workers who are.
But in your estimation, these overpaid and underworked or workers are 15% of the workforce. In your estimation, that means
Correct.
85. The another 85%, regardless of their productivity levels, have to do with a cost of living crisis, high inflation, food inflation. So when you're speaking about, yes, 250, you don't believe 250 is realistic. Let's talk about if 60,000 naira is realistic in itself.
No, so I was getting to that.
Okay.
So let me take a cue from what you said. The government is now offering 62,000 naira. I think that's a joke. That's a collective insult to the majority of workers in the public sector and the private sector. 62,000 naira will simply not do anything for any Nigerian worker today. And that is the truth of the matter. What are the major basic needs of every Nigerian, whether you're working or not? Shelter, food, transportation, clothes, health. It's not going to happen. Divide 62,000 by 30 days. You're looking at about 2,000 naira. Or 2,100 naira.
2,000 a day.
Now, what is the price of your average foodstuff? Gari, rice, beans. I don't even want to go to tubers of yam because that's for people who have money and really want to eat well. So the average worker, what is the cost of transportation today? Even just going to work, assuming you go to work and you sleep there till Friday, then you find your way back home. You're looking at least 10,000 a week. It's simply not going to, and I'm assuming the average Nigerian worker is unmarried, has no family living with him or her, and just fends for himself or herself. It's simply not going to fly. Now, on the other hand, right, and the government makes the point that 62,000 naira represents a more than 100% increase on 30,000 naira that was approved in 2019.
Yeah.
However, that is a very ingenious statement because what was the value of 30,000 naira in 2019?
Absolutely.
What is the value of 62,000 naira today?
Yeah.
That's one.
Labour made that case clearly.
And then look at the fact that the naira seemingly loses value every single week. So you are dealing with a number of things. So even if you announce an increase, it's a nominal increase. By the time you factor in headline inflation, food inflation, and all the other variables, you then find out that you're probably really back at the starting point, or you even move back 2 or 3 steps. So the truth of the matter is, I expected Labour to look at this more holistically, right? You're not going to get 250 or any wonderful magical sum in one instance. I expected them to phase it. Okay, so we're here. Make the point clearly that whatever increase cannot be the salary for the next 5 years. You have to amend the Minimum Wage Act. And luckily, we now know our National Assembly can move very quickly. Take the national anthem process. So that can be done. So I believe the act should be amended. We don't review salaries every 5 years and maybe index them to the market, the way Ghana has done it.
Yeah.
So that when there are major shocks or major disruptions to the market, then the salaries take some sort of adjustment. We need to look at the things that comprise the salary. So for transportation, the government did promise CNG buses. I've been looking out for them. And I stand to be corrected.
1 year after.
I'm not sure I've seen any of them in Lagos. And Lagos is the economic capital of the country, financial powerhouse. So if they're not in Lagos, what are the chances you will find them in the northwest, in the northeast, in the south-south, in the southeast? What are the chances? So you need to sort out transportation. If that is taken out, and how do you do that? You can give them vouchers, monthly vouchers, where they can board these buses to their respective places of work on expanding the mass rail options for each state, and get the governors to come on board. Then foodstuffs, why are the prices of foodstuffs continually increasing? I'm told that a paint bucket of honey beans is about 9,000 naira now. That is ridiculous. So what happens? There's a lot of insecurity in the places where these foodstuffs are grown. Non-state actors armed with criminal intent either prevent the farmers from accessing the farmlands or charge a tribute to access the farmland to plant. When it's time to harvest, a similar sum or even higher sum is collected before then. You've dealt with that. Between the production zone and coming down to Lagos or any major center where you can sell the foodstuff, you then have rogue elements of sanctioned state actors collecting bribes. So by the time a truck full of yams, tubers of yam, leaves Benue, by the time it gets to Lagos, the price has tripled or quadrupled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me just come in here to move the discussion back to what confronts the average Nigerian worker. You know, of course, that the labor unions speak for an average Nigerian worker, but they are confronted with two forces. The federal government on the one hand that says 62,000. That's what we're able to afford. We have not really seen what the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, proposed to the government. There was the rumor about 105,000, which was, roundly, exactly by the presidency. We do not know what he recommended and the template that he gave. On the other hand, are the governors who are saying we can't even get up to 60, that many of the other states are not even able to pay the 30 where you are. But here we have Edo State, for example, that is saying that we've been doing more than 30 before. Now we are on 70, and we are not borrowing to pay. What lessons do you think other states can learn from Edo 1 and from a Lagos, which from all intents and purposes can afford to do it? What does the Minimum Wage Act say regarding uniformity of a national minimum wage?
Okay, thank you. So I'll start my answers from the last question. Now, the national minimum wage says it applies all over the federation. However, there are exceptions. One, it doesn't apply to people who are in casual or part-time employment. It doesn't apply to organizations where less than 25 people are employed. It doesn't apply to businesses engaged in agriculture, and it goes on. Now,
so that's a good chunk, isn't it, of people that could be...
Yeah, and even the old one, I think the one in 1983, I think it was less than 50. So if you employ less than... Yeah, so if you employ less than 50 people, then, you're too small an enterprise to be charging. So at the end of the day, it is a law, I think. And laws always have exceptions.
Exactly.
So exceptions can always be written into laws. But we haven't got to the stage of National Assembly even considering the...
Yes, true. And then, incidentally, funny enough, the Act provides for a monitoring and supervision process. I'm not sure that has happened. Now, let's go to the states. I'm sorry to say this. The last time we had a set of performing governors across the nation was the class of 1979. They are the ones who did a lot of the development that we see in Nigeria today, bar the military. Now, since 1999, generally, I haven't been impressed with the class of governors from 99 to date. Generally, there have been a few across board. There have been a few standouts, but generally, no, they've been extremely disappointing. Now, the governors come out and say that we can't pay. That is very pedestrian. Why can't you pay? You voluntarily brought yourselves out to be elected.
To serve.
Well, some of them didn't come to serve, but that's a different story. So you brought yourself out you offered your services and you said you can take the state forward. Now, what we've witnessed is a lot of them just depend on FAC allocations generally. When you look at the internally generated revenue for a lot of these states, it's nothing to write home about. And it's extremely disappointing where you see states with vast mineral resources, enormous economic potentials that are not being harnessed or exploited. Now the governors say we can't pay 62,000. And sadly, this is the truth, because even the 30,000, there are a number of states that haven't paid and are not paying 30,000. Even when, during the last administration, money was released for the payment of these salaries, some states still managed or found a way not to pay.
Yeah.
Now, in some states in the Northeast, teachers are paid 7,500 naira. I think that is truly criminal. Mm-hmm. Now, the question is...
And those governors will sit on the same table with the Sanwo-Olu and Obaseki and others,
yes,
discussing minimum wage?
Again, so there's a bigger problem. The average Nigerian is not involved in the process that throws off the leaders. We're not members of political parties. We don't participate in the nomination process. When they're selected at the primaries, we're absent. We're mere observers. And then we get the worst of the worst thrown up at election level. And I look at the last elections in Kogi State. Across board, I wasn't impressed with any of the candidates. And that was truly tragic, given the fact that trace the history of Kogi from the time it became a state till then. Name a governor you've been impressed with. Tough. So the governors need to wake up. And I think this business of you run through one term, you go into another term, you've served 8 years, and we can't pinpoint or identify anything you've achieved is wrong. It's simply unacceptable. In a private business, you cannot be the MD of a company and for 2 years you've run straight losses and the board will keep you in office. Won't happen. Now, the governors need to put on their thinking caps. It's not enough to say you can't pay, you have to pay. Because the reality on the ground requires that the salaries be increased. How they're going to do it is left to them and their economic teams. And the people should insist that the right thing be done.
Can I ask, sorry?
Yes, I wanted to kind of like switch the conversation a bit, because it almost seems as if the government is at a catch-22 where if they implement this 62,000 naira, for example, there's no continuity. And there's been this push about the conversation of productivity. So I want to talk about this relationship between productivity and the proposed minimum wage increase. Can a higher minimum wage drive productivity, or should we be focusing on productivity improving or coming first to push for this wage hikes? Because when you also talk about the spending power and even the ease of doing business all around the country, 100,000 naira is really like what, $67? That's not much when you think about it. So should we also be looking, or should the government also be looking at how to increase productivity so that it's not just one-sided and we're looking at increasing just the wages, something that we're probably going to do again 5 years from now?
I agree with you, Shaitan. So, like I said earlier, Labour has been short-sighted. All they're focusing on is increase the salaries. But no, if you artificially fix the prices fix the salaries of workers, the unintended effect that will follow is that there will be layoffs, because the employers will simply say, we have a fixed budget for salaries, and if you've increased it, that means the number of employees would need to be reduced. What we need to be doing as a nation to get out of this situation is to increase our productivity. When productivity is increased, you earn more money. When there's more money, people have more money to spend, the naira has more value, and then you find that the cost of living will reduce. But for as long as Labour is fixated only on increasing salaries and not addressing productivity, not demanding increased and improved productivity from the governments at the national, subnational levels and the local governments, then we will continue to run around in circles and continue to discuss issues we should
What
have
is
left
increasing productivity to you? What does that look like to you?
So increasing productivity to me is simple. Import the best practices that you find in the private sectors and apply it in the government sector. So we need to identify what are we good at? What are the things we can do? In terms of services, can we provide customer services to people in other countries, the way India exports their people to be customer service reps for a lot of industries? Can we work on our tourism potentials?
Oh, tourism, very good one.
So, Obudu started in 99. Before that particular governor, Governor Duke, I'm not sure many Nigerians wanted to spend a holiday in Calabar. But he started that, and for a while we saw that foreigners were coming in, they were spending time. What did that mean for the economy of Cross River States? The hotels got revenue because they were paying hotel rates. They were buying artifacts, they were buying gifts, they were paying ticket fees to attend the various events. Airlines were making money because they were flying people into Cross River States. And the economy picked up because local industries sprang up to supply services that would support what was going on. So we have a number of tourist potentials. Are we truly developing them? Yes, you cannot rule out insecurity. Now we have these unlicensed non-state actors that are all over the place, and it calls into question the commitment and the political will to deal with them. So take, for example, Lagos. There's no reason why Lagos cannot and should not be a global city for tourism. There's absolutely no reason. But to do that, you have to sort out the transportation nightmare. Yes, they've started blue line, red line. You have to start and complete the green line. You have to develop the tourist sites in Lagos. And there are quite a number, from the private islands even to Badagry. Give people a reason. Once you create a conducive environment, Nigerians are very enterprising.
Very resourceful. Oh.
Once there's a space for them to fully harness and develop their ideas, you'll find that the country will be a lot better to live in. But this responsibility...
So the challenge is to the governors who are saying we can't pay. They're saying we can't pay because they've not done enough in increasing and improving on the IGR of their states.
Correct. They can't pay based on their current realities. Improve your internally generated revenue by doing some of these things I've talked about. And you will find that you have a lot more money. But then comes the golden question. With a lot more money, will they do the proper thing?
I want to ask, because sometimes people argue that we have a difference between our urban poor and our rural poor, and that so our states that are mostly rural, unlike Lagos where you have the large urban dwellings, there are states that are mostly rural, that this money is a lot of money for them. Do you think that this argument is a weak argument, or you think it's that the governors are just relying on fallacies there?
No, it's a valid argument for now. That yes, our states are rural, our states are seemingly undeveloped compared to other states like, say, Edo, Rivers, Lagos, Akwa Ibom, Kaduna, Kano. But why should your state remain that way? What steps are you taking to ensure that you pull your state out of that situation and you make it look like any of the other states? Because the truth of the matter is, I think peer pressure should start to tell. If you see your fellow governor doing very well in the state, at the very least, if you do not know, at night just go humbly and say, my brother, please, I don't know what to do. Give me 1 or 2 tips. No, it's the truth of the matter.
It has happened in the past. I mean, a number of, including Edo, that is seemingly doing well in the area of, came to Lagos to say that we'd like to understudy what you're doing. There's no shame in that.
Yes.
I mean, I think I was going to ask, because we did speak about some states not even paying the 30,000. I believe Zamfara was one of the states that was not paying the 70,000.
Even Borno in certain areas.
But Zamfara has a lot of gold. They have a lot of solid minerals. So this is what you're talking about. They need to develop more.
So Zamfara, sadly, there's a lot of illegal gold mining going on. Now, unlike crude oil, which is the property or the exclusive reserve of the federal government, gold belongs to the state. Now, it's truly amazing and truly shocking that they've not been able to harness that. Look at Ghana. What will it take to harness global gold mining giants to Zamfara? they will set up mines, and once they set up the mines, associated industries will be set up. They will set up schools, they'll set up residences, and from that, Zamfara will get tons of naira in terms of income tax. They can also charge for land use. Then the federal government gets increased revenue when the companies operating those mines pay company income tax. But nobody is thinking, very few governors are actually putting on their thinking caps and thinking collectively. Rather, they're chasing stuff they shouldn't be chasing. Now you see them dedicating sums to programs who are going on holy pilgrimages. The holy pilgrimages are good, don't get me wrong. I'm yet to see the benefit to the nation.
They're good for individuals. That's the injunction, not to be subsidized by the state.
So the governors haven't done enough and need to do a lot more. So 62,000 is unacceptable. It won't fly. Look.
So what's your message, therefore, to the federal government, to the states, and to the Labour in particular? Labour will reject the 62,000. There is Salah next Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, 16, 17 or so, will be public holiday. Right. Mirika said, if you have to go back to strike, don't do it on the eve of Salah. Wednesday, what would that be, 18th or thereabout? What would be your advice to Labour? How should we avoid another round of destruction or disruptions to the economy?
Okay, so I think we left out one critical body.
Okay.
We left out the local governments. Yes, it will be argued that we are not sure what they actually do, but they're also supposed to be paying salaries. Now, my advice to Labour is this, right? You will be well within your rights to reject 62,000. However, propose a sum that you can use as a take-off point.
Not the 250.
No, 250 is not going to fly.
They're just trying to haggle like Nigeria.
No. So, yeah, she's right. So what came to my mind when they first announced 615 is your typical transaction at Balogu markets. Someone goes high, someone goes low. Then when you're tired of wasting each other's time, you meet in the middle. Yeah. So I think what they should be going for is any figure between 100 and 150,000. That's a good start-off point.
We could be back to the 105 that was allegedly credited to Mr. Wali Edun.
So the 105, I'm sure they can do more. And I think part of the angst Labour is showing is that, look, the public officials at the executive, the legislative arm, are living such obscene lives. It's truly amazing.
Clearly.
So they see the average National Assembly member collecting money and they're like, so if your life is this good, why do our lives have to be this bad? Yes. But the truth of the matter is they have a limited number. They are 469. And we are talking about thousands or tens of thousands of Nigerian workers spread across. And it is important that we do not place too much strain on the organized private sector. We've seen companies owned by rich foreign parents close up shop and leave. We've seen some companies, multinationals, that haven't left but have really downscaled their operations. Now, we don't want to cut our nose to spite our face, right? And we cannot afford another round of retrenchment in the private space. So the real conversation should be with the organized private sector. Guys, 60,000 isn't going to fly. Can you do 100? Can you do 120? If they say they can, and this is a big if, then the government will have no choice but to follow suit. But you cannot go to a negotiation and move from 60 to 62. It appears as if you're not serious. So my advice to the federal government is, look, you don't want to inflate matters beyond this, right? Propose a sum that is actually realistic, that actually makes sense. Cut down on some of your unnecessary expenses. Cut down on the cost of governance. Cut down on the unnecessary trips in and out of the country. And deploy those funds to this cause. Also, all the other measures you've announced, bring them into reality, because there's a very clear distinction between an announcement and reality. So, for example, the Students' Loan Scheme, they've indicated they've allocated 1 trillion naira to deal with it in the first year of operation. That has to be a reality. Where they will find the money for that is another question.
Definitely. I think that's a good place to end. I mean, you said 150, but I wonder how, George Chukwuma will be able to afford that 600,000 for his 4 drivers. But that's a good place.